Career Ed Live is the new monthly outreach from the Office of Career Education. My name is Denny Daugherty, and today we are going to be discussing tips for navigating a career fair, which is a really timely topic because my department actually has technically 3 career fairs within the next month or so. One of them is the Educator Expo. It's a virtual event aimed mostly at education majors. But we have 2 of our large career expos actually that same week as well, March 30th and 31st. So it's our hope that students will be able to view this and take away some tips, because navigating a career fair is not, I don't think, the most challenging thing you ever do. I don't think it's horribly terrifying or anything like that, but there are some preparations that you want to make beforehand. There are some considerations the day of the event and even after the event as well. So I want to be sure for us to have some time to talk about that, so that attending the career fair is something that students can both participate in, and hopefully it will just be a very positive experience for all involved. Because the whole point of attending a career fair is to hopefully leave with either a career, a new job, part-time job, internships, some type of opportunity. So it's our hope that the advice that I'm about to give you can make it that much more likely that you leave with one of those desired outcomes, one of those things you hope to leave with that day. So let's see. At the end, like I said, our career fairs are, other than the Educator Expo, are going to be in person. So I'm going to talk about some safety protocols and things that we have in place for that, as well as give a few more tips toward the end. We're going to talk about a few things that my department likes to push. But I have a couple tips here I want to go over as far as things for students to consider if you are going to be going to a career expo. So a couple of things to keep in mind. We're going to break it down before the event, during the event, and after the event. So prior to the event, you want to be sure to research the organizations. We have a lot of the same people who attend our events semester after semester, year after year. And not only that, but we also publish a list of who's going to be there. This is accessible on Handshake. So it should never really come as a surprise who is going to be attending our career expos. So that's good for a number of ways. Number one, you'll know, you'll have knowledge of who's there, but you can also take that a step further and use that information to research the companies that are going to be there. And it's a great way to set yourself apart, because unfortunately not everyone is going to do it, and we know that. Unfortunately, no matter how much we say it, there unfortunately will be students who do not choose to research. So by doing so, it's a way to actually set yourself apart and perhaps get ahead of your competition for internships, jobs, and things like that. So, and when you use Handshake, you should, for a number of employers, be able to look up a profile, learn a lot about the company very easily, probably without leaving the Handshake site, is my assumption on that. I've reviewed it, the employers tabs. I've reviewed that with a few students, and it's amazing how much information is on there to start with. So that's a really great place. Of course, you can go to company websites as well. If you happen to know someone who works for a company, they can be great to talk to. So there's all sorts of methods you can use for researching companies, but don't show up at a career expo just totally uninformed or totally surprised at who's going to be there. The next thing you want to do is be sure to update your resume. And with a resume, you can have a general resume that you take to a career fair and take several copies, even up to 15 or 20 copies. And if you want to have something general, you can. A piece of advice I like to give students is, since you're researching companies who are going to be there anyway, imagine if you took a resume and you tailored it for, if you knew Johnson & Johnson, the first thing I thought of, was going to be at the career fair. I mean, imagine giving them a generic resume, or imagine giving them a resume tailored for Johnson & Johnson. Again, probably 9 out of 10 people won't go as far as to do this, but if you tailored a resume for every stop that you wanted to make, or at least, not even if it's not every stop, if you could even tailor maybe 3 to 6 resumes for the top companies you want to talk to, imagine how that might set you apart in a really meaningful way when going to a career fair. Because the thing is, when you go to a career fair, you are going to be talking with a whole lot of different people in a very short span. The same is true of recruiters. I've attended these things a few times as well, both as a student, but also as a not really so much once or twice, maybe a recruiter. In the line of my work, I've attended more to either advertise going to school or advertise resources. And I've not talked to the volume of people that some have, but I know that you talk to a lot of people in a very short period of time. So if you're not doing something to stand out in a positive way, you might get lost in the shuffle. That being said, I've seen people stand out in a negative way too, so we don't want to be thinking about standing out in a negative way. There's ways to do that we don't want to do, but you don't want to get lost in the shuffle either. You want to stand out in a positive way. So it's also good to have an elevator pitch prepared. Prepare your introduction. So if you go to a career fair, hi, my name is Denny. I am a higher education professional. I've done this, this, and this. I'm looking for an opportunity with blank. That's better than hi, I'm Denny, not knowing what to say next. And that's something in a lot of our, I know, for instance, our accounting 216 classes, they come in and actually meet with my office, and one of the things they have to prepare for us is an elevator pitch. And we call it gets its name an elevator pitch because it might be a really good thing for you to talk about to someone, maybe if you were in an elevator with them, maybe someone who's hiring a company where you'd like to work, or if you bump into someone. But they can also be used more strategically in settings and situations like this as well. Have it prepared. Have prepared what you'd like to say. I tell students too, you want to know what you want to say, but you don't want to be too overly mechanical on this. I compare it to a doll where you pull the string and it says the same phrase. You don't want to sound like that. You want to know what you want to say, but you also want to engage with the person with whom you are communicating. You want to be sure to actually communicate with them and talk to them, not just talk at them. So you also want to plan your professional outfit. You do want to think about the way you present yourself at a career fair. And every time I've worked at Marshall now for over 5 years, so I've been to quite a few career fairs here. So, and you always get a wide range of student attire. Some people break out the suits and they look like $1 million bucks. Some students, might go up maybe a notch from what they wear to class, maybe nice pants, nice shirt or something like that. And it never fails. Some students will wear shorts. Some students will look like they just came from the rec center. It never fails. You get an array of things, and it's never recommended that you have that, particularly that last category, the shorts, t-shirts, maybe even jeans, very casual sweatshirts, looking like you came from the rec center. That's never desirable in any situation. But when you're at an event like that and you're standing 6 feet away from someone who's wearing a suit, how much worse even does that make you look? So you really want to be thinking about what you're going to wear ahead of time. I really recommend people that they really break out the big guns, so to say, with this. I mean, you want to present yourself in the best manner you can. Suits are great. Be thinking about that. Probably minimum shirt and tie for guys. I think a suit's better if you can do it. And similar, I'd say for ladies, similar guidelines. You want to look pretty much like you're going to an interview. Would be what I would tell you. You don't want to approach it from the mindset of how little can I get by with. How few pieces of professional clothing can I get by with and still look okay? You want to be thinking that's even the wrong way. I don't even want to discuss the particulars, because if you think like that, you're even thinking about it all wrong. You want to think about how good can I make myself look? How well can I present myself? And that's the question you want to be asking yourself as you plan your attire for the event. You also want to plan your time, and that's something we're going to talk about in particular, because we are doing the in-person career fairs and we have some safety protocols in mind. But when you go to a career fair, there's again a lot of interactions happening in one place. A lot of people lining up to talk to certain employers. So you want to be strategic. You want to maybe have a list of who you'd like to hit. You want to make sure that at the same time you're making good use of your time and theirs. You want to be courteous of their time. Don't go long enough to make a connection. Don't necessarily stay there and talk their ear off either, because you want to be mindful that other people are present. So let's see, during a career fair, again, this is huge. This is something we ask students to do. Is you want to my list here actually excuse me, my list actually says ditch your backpack. Please do not wear your backpack into one of these things. We try to catch people, And there's always a few that slip through the cracks, but I mean, it looks unprofessional, but also this won't be an issue this time around for us. But you go to a typical career fair like pre-pandemic, and what happens is you have a lot of people in a small space, and if you have a backpack, every time you turn around, you're probably smashing into someone with it. So backpacks just have no place at a career fair. There's just many reasons. Just leave it outside. Just don't even wear it inside. Approaching recruiters. How do you go up and approach a recruiter? Make eye contact, smile. I have a firm handshake, but not bone crushing. You don't want to cripple them, but you don't want to kind of shake their hand like that either. You want to have a nice firm handshake because that will show confidence. You also want to be sure that you're having a discussion with them versus a monologue. It's not just all about how great am I, how many great things can I tell you about myself. Have a little bit of give and take, hear what they have to say, learn a little bit about their company, and again, leave a memorable impression and leave a positive impression. Because anyone who talks to me in a monologue format almost never is that something I remember positively. So afterward, you want to think about a follow-up. You want to be sure to send an email or a letter to the recruiter expressing interest in the position or the organization, also thanking them for their time. It's also good to reiterate how the skills you have, how that can benefit them and the organization. What skills do you bring to the table? So in addition to being a courtesy and showing that you know your way around pleasantries and things like that, a follow-up is also a good way to continue to leave a lasting impression, because I've said it like 8 times now. But when you go to one of those things, you do want to stand out from the herd a little bit. And that can be a really good way to do that, sending a positive follow-up. So some questions. Let's talk about some questions you can be asking recruiters. What do I even ask a recruiter? What kind of things how should I even begin a discussion? So some things you can be asking recruiters include, and I can get you, if anyone's interested, I might even, when I post this on YouTube, put maybe a lengthier list in the video description or something like that. I've got a list here. I don't know if I want to go through them all, but I'll give you some examples of things you can be asking. So things like, what are entry-level career opportunities for a bachelor's degree candidate or master's or whatever the case might be? What does the organization look for in new hires? You can ask them things like, do you have summer experiences such as internships, perhaps part-time work, etc.? Let's see here. How important is graduate school for advancement in the field? Let's see, is there a mentoring program? Is a good thing. How is the organization managing diversity in the workplace? Something really good to think about. Let's see here. This is a really good one. How would you describe organizational culture? Organizational culture. That's something you want to think about as well. And in fact, a lot of times when someone leaves a job, it's not necessarily the job itself. It's that there's something about the organizational culture that's either toxic, unsuited to them, something they just don't care for. Much like every person you meet is not necessarily going to be your cup of tea, so to say. Not every workplace will be either. Even workplaces that do the same type of work can have vastly different cultures. So it's a good question to ask. That's a good interviewing question as well. Tell me a little bit about the culture. Why do you like working here? And you also want to pay attention too, because if that catches people off guard or they struggle to answer it, if they cannot answer a question, why do they like working there? That can be a red flag. So let's see, questions like, what are some current challenges as an organization and industry? What are some current challenges your organization is facing now? I think questions like that, especially for a new student, can be really good, or like a rising up and coming professional. If you've been in the field for a while, you'll probably be expected to have more of a grasp on that. But I think especially as a student who's transitioning into the job market, the questions like that are a little bit more fair. Not to say you shouldn't do some research and be prepared to discuss it, because if you're well read on that, you might just blow them away how much you know. But asking questions like that can also be important. So let's see here. I want to switch gears and just talk just a little bit about more details about our upcoming expo. So I'm going to share my screen. Here it is. So as you can see, I have a flyer. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. This is a flyer about that we give out to students making most of a career expo, and we've talked about a lot of these things so far. 30-second commercial, bring your resume, collect business cards. That's also really important too. I don't think we've mentioned that yet. You want to think about when you go to an event like this, every recruiter there should have a stack of business cards and hand them to you. You want to be sure to appropriately take a business card. For instance, when someone gives you the business card, you want to make sure to look at it before stuffing it in your pocket. If someone hands you a business card, it's considered to be kind of rude or dismissive to just stuff it in a pocket without looking at it. Just little tips like that. Doing your homework, researching organizations. I think a lot of this we've already talked about. So I do want to move on real quickly and discuss some safety protocols that we have in place. So when we do our career expos here in a few weeks, there's a maximum room capacity of 75. So we will be limiting the amount of students in the room at the time. They'll receive a number and we'll be calling them to enter the room. We suggest each student be prepared for only 5 minutes per table to keep things moving. So we're going to have it kind of broken down by time. We're going to be managing a number of people in the room at one time to be safe. Hand sanitizing stations, of course. Students will follow signage. The door will have I believe there'll be a lot of one-way walkways and things like that. So we don't have people running into each other back and forth. There will be 2 6-feet tables combined for employers to follow social distance guidelines. We'll make sure that employers aren't necessarily up against one another either, so that everyone in the room can have enough space to interact, but also be safe in the process. And again, our career expos are going to be March the 30th and March the 31st. So those are coming up here in just a few weeks. We hope that we will see you at these events. We hope you will take part in that. And one other thing, just one other parting thought here, because I actually don't have a whole lot more for you, but I do want to just kind of leave you with this thought. Going to a career expo is something that is of value, not just for graduating students. Even if you're an underclassman, this is something you can look at. For a number of reasons. People do get internships, summer jobs, and things like that through these events, but also you can go and make connections with employers, because again, we do have a number of people who return to this year after year. I'm not just making this up. It's not uncommon for me to talk to employers and for them to have me say, this is one of the best expos that I come to. This is one of my favorite career expos. A lot of the roles I've had, a lot of my jobs on Expo Day, it have involved being kind of like on the front line and greeting employers as they get here. One time when we had it at the rec, I even shuttled people from the 6th Avenue parking facility up to the rec. So I had a few minutes with them in the van, and we talked about a number of things. But one thing that a lot of them brought up was how much in particular they like the Marshall University Career Expo. So that's not an uncommon sentiment. I hear it quite a bit. So employers do like that. They do come to this semester after semester, year after year. So even if you're not looking for an opportunity right now, if you go and make a connection and interact and leave them with a favorable impression of you, you can perhaps next time around go and reconnect with them and build that relationship. So when the time is right for you, hopefully hopefully, like I've said previously, you stood out in a positive way, and hopefully you might be able to seek an opportunity with this organization. So as far as tips for navigating a career fair, I think I've about covered all my tips. Again, what I'll probably do is in more detail list these on at least the questions. Like I said, I don't want to hit every single question. I'll probably list more of those on the description when I post this to YouTube. But do you have any questions? Is there anything we can talk about in greater detail?
Yeah, I have one question now about finances when it comes to an interview or something like that. So since most companies have an online application system, which would typically ask you expected salaries or something along those lines. So how do you have any resources for finding out what an average salary for such and such position would be?
Yeah, for average salaries, there's a couple different ways you can go about that. You can look at BLS.gov, Bureau of Labor Statistics.gov. That can give you some helpful information. You can also just do some research on websites like Handshake here, Indeed, and see what salaries are posted. You can look at things too. I know Glassdoor.com is another great site. So doing some research, and when it's kind of a trap when they ask you about a salary. it can be, or at least it can be viewed like that. And a couple rules when asked about what is your target salary. One of the important rules is to avoid nailing yourself down to a particular number. Give a range, if at all possible. Give a range. You also want to make that range kind of in the middle of the pack, because you don't want to leave money on the table and be a bargain to them, but I mean not advocate for yourself when you could actually have gotten more money for the job. And why would you do that? But if you list even if it's a range, if you list it at the very top, they might think even if they like you, they can't afford you. So that's why it's safest to avoid nailing yourself down to one number, and also keeping that range somewhat in the middle. And that's why doing research can play into this very nicely as well, because you can identify what that range is when you do research. And then once you have that in mind, have a look at the range. Maybe have anywhere from a $5,000 to $10,000 range within of your range within the greater range of all salaries that you've read about for that job. So yeah, very good question.
That's awesome. Also, a follow-up question on that. When interviews are done and when it's time for the final offer letter to be from the company, how well is negotiation taken in companies? Do they perceive it as a green flag, as a red flag, or what sort of options can possibly take away the offer from the company?
Oh, so do you mean, are there any behaviors or anything you can do that'll make them like take an offer back? Is that what you're?
No, kind of like when they're finalizing the offer. If I were to negotiate for a higher salary, say a 5,000 increase in the salary, or maybe a sign-on bonus, or extra leave days, or whatever. So, at what point does it become aversive to the company?
Do you mean what it was like asking for too much?
Yeah.
That's really that's real. I don't know. That's really tough to answer. I think it's really going to depend upon where you're interviewing, what's their culture like. I definitely would not appear as greedy at the beginning, and because a lot of times when you're there, if you've been there for a while, if like you're under a contract, you might be able to renegotiate a contract and get more later on. And something else to think about is how happy are you in your current employment situation. If you're desperate for a job and you need anything, I wouldn't push them too hard. If you're in a situation where you're happy and you're just like rolling the dice, seeing what's happened, you can be a little bit more aggressive in that. So yeah, so think about your situation and how devastated will you be if it does not work out. And again, like I said, if you're unemployed and your bills are piling up versus if you're happy and you're just seeing what's out there, those are two very different situations.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today on Career Education Live. Again, this is a once monthly outreach from the Office of Career Education. Thank you for joining me, and we hope you will join us next time.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, you too.